I've never felt a true terror, not just a common fear, an actual terror. It's not something my kind is used to feel unless the sun comes out and we are still outside. Honestly, I never actually knew this feeling could exist inside of us until that one cursed night. Even now, I can't forget the feeling. My hands are still shaking lightly, even as I write this down, for a reason I still haven't figured out. But going outside again feels like going into the hands of death. And from so little options, this is probably the only thing I'm able to do right now. From time to time, I glance from my window, staring at the world outside covered in darkness. From outside, I can see our walls covering our castle, probably the only place where I feel safe right now. But it still doesn't give the full sense of security I desperately need. Because no matter where I am, I always feel the thing I encountered will eventually find me. Maybe it already knows I'm here. Maybe it knows all of us are here. And then there is this feeling that I'm being stared at by the endless woods behind our walls. Before, I never actually understood why we needed them. Other creatures always kept their distance from here, and humans would be far too foolish to even set foot in here if they know what's good for them. But after what happened, I feel they actually meant to keep something from us. Seeing everybody around in a rather uneasy mood from time to time, and the fact that after my incident, more guards were patrolling the walls than usual, I'm starting to believe my theory might be right. Our castle is a big place, though not the biggest. My kind has always lived in this place for decades, with tens of dozens of us here, more capable and powerful, and yet I feel so small and vulnerable in here. Going through these memories isn't pleasant, and I wish I'd rather forget them, but I try to write everything I remember from that night. My name is Lucian Davidson. Not so long ago I turned 22, and I mostly spent my life hunting people and learning things from my parents and some other families on how to be the perfect vampire that everybody needs me to be, along other things that I should be cautious if I'm ever sent outside. The usual stuff was always return before dawn, avoid any holy places, stay out of conflict with other creatures unless absolutely necessary. But nobody ever prepared me for the events I experienced and for the death I still can't handle. One night, me and my friend Bella left the safety of our walls to sharpen our skills and fill our hunger with some hunting, while also having a great time toying with our food. Of course, nobody knew we were gone because they probably wouldn't let us go alone, apparently because we still lacked the true experience, and they would probably send an experienced vampire with us to watch our every move, and we didn't want that. The thrill was way too strong that night. Both of us made our way through the woods, our slightly enchanted vision making us see mostly through the darkness, and our hearing able to detect anybody that would try to sneak on us. Small swords belted on our hips, just in case, though we usually never needed them. Hunting humans was always more fun barehanded. Most of them couldn't do anything anyway. A few of them tried to fight back, of course, like one foolish villager who tried to hit me, only to end up with a broken hand afterwards. We always like to play with our prey first, and tonight, the intentions were no different. Bella, despite having more experience, was always the one to toy with her prey first. She always was way more brutal than I. Gotta admit, I liked that about her. But when we were not on the hunt, she was always funny, smart, and way too sweet at me. I was about to continue writing, but I had to check the window because I heard some commotion from outside. I checked and saw two guards on a walk talking to each other, while the other one pointed towards the woods. I looked the way he pointed but saw nothing. I couldn't stare for too long anyway, as suddenly one of them looked up my way and I had to duck under. No idea if he saw me, and not sure what he pointed at. I just hope it wasn't. Never mind. Bella and I had a clear destination we'd been eyeing out for a while. A few miles away, there was this old abandoned church in the middle of a field, where we sometimes saw a few people in white, always doing gestures that looked like praying to us. Not sure why they even chose that place and why at night. At that time, Bella told me humanity's mind never stops confusing her. Despite being told to stay away from holy places, it didn't seem all that holy to us. We walked around that church a few times, but I have never felt any sort of holy energy from there. But now, I wish we never set a foot in that place, because along the way, I felt something wrong is about to happen, that we weren't supposed to be here. I used to glance around and behind me far too often than usual, but my eyes always met with the same dark emptiness. Even the woods were too quiet, which I have been told that most wildlife will stay quiet whenever a predator is nearby. But they told us most of the time it's because of our presence. But now that I think about it, I'm not sure if the presence they truly feared was ours. Bella didn't seem to notice any of this, and I just thought it was my imagination. An hour passed, and we were getting closer to our destination. Along the way, I asked her what we will do if the humans aren't there, to which she answered that she didn't think about it that much, but that she is sure they will be there. And true to her words, after some time, we see a small light and smoke coming out from the woods. A fire. We both smiled at each other before quickly running towards the source. The light was getting closer and closer, but so did a smell, the smell of blood. We stopped behind one tree to look at the field where that old ruined church still stood. It's been like this for a few years now, basically only a shadow of its former self. Now it was just a stone building with a missing roof, with smoke coming out of it. What we have been told is that many years ago, a vampire party from other parts were ordered to tear this place down, along killing anybody who was in there. They succeeded in the killing, though by the look of it, not so much with destroying the place. It's been abandoned for most part, but strangely, a few humans have started to return to that place a couple of weeks ago, only to leave right after. "Do you smell that?" Bella asked me, which I just nodded and said it's coming out from the church. Bella savored the smell with a sigh, already getting excited before she gestured with her eyes to make our way inside. The thought of something being wrong before was replaced with the thrill of the hunt. The plan was simple. One of us would get inside, making a little distraction blocking the entrance, while the other will climb over and come from behind them. And I was the lucky one to make a show. A few meters from the church, we stopped and looked at each other nodding, before Bella made her way to the other side of the church. I was ready at that time. At least, that's what I thought. When I got to the entrance, I noticed that they made themselves a lazy excuse of a wooden door that looked like it barely held itself together. I studied it for a second before cracking my neck getting ready, and with all the strength I had, I kicked the wooden door, which instantly broke down, pieces of wood falling apart and to the ground before I made my way in, but I didn't expect what I found there. Dead bodies lying all around, humans wearing white robes and wearing masks that displayed a skull, with each one of them being covered in blood, some missing some limbs, some had their organs pulled out. This place looked like a slaughterhouse, but that wasn't all, because in front of me an old red carpet led to a big stone table with something burning on it, and there was a man kneeling on the ground wearing the same outfits as the others, but with a horned crown on his head. He didn't even notice I was there, nor did he register the loud noise of me breaking in. He just kneeled there, whispering something to himself. For a moment, I stood frozen in place, a strange feeling in my belly. I didn't know what to do or think, but eventually I walked closer, and I finally noticed the thing burning on the table was a man lying there burning. I could barely see any details because it looked like he was like this for some time, but by the few things I saw on him, he looked like one of them. The man in front of me still continued to whisper something in a language I didn't understand. It looked like he was praying, but to this day, I'm not sure what he was saying, but I wish I did. I looked around myself, suddenly unsure what to do. I'd never seen this before, even though I heard humans tend to do things like this, but all of this seemed wrong. That's when my eyes fixed on something. Claw marks on the wall, big and deep, leading up, as if whatever made them has climbed over. Then I heard the man in front of me turn around, and I quickly turned to meet his gaze, but I never did, because his whole face was covered in blood, and his eyes were cut out, only leaving bloodied black holes instead. And he smiled at me, small laughs leaving him, that quickly turned into straight up laughter. I stepped back, but the man stood up and took one step closer, before opening his arms towards me, still laughing, that turned straight up evil. I gripped the handle of my sword, but just as I did, a sword pierced straight through his mouth, his laughter being silenced instantly. A few drops of blood fell on my face. When the sword was pulled out, the man fell onto the ground, and there she stood, Bella. I don't know what would have happened if she didn't intervene, but perhaps that man knew something we didn't. He was the only one who probably knew what happened, though if he saw it, that's another question. We both stood there silently, watching the dead corpse, before Bella turned without a word to look at the burning man, staring at it for a few seconds, but for me, it felt like a few minutes. I stepped closer, but she turned at me, her face now uneasy, and from the look, even a hint of fear. It's the first time I actually saw her like this. As I was about to break the silence, she spoke. We should probably head back, report this to the others. I don't know what happened, but I don't like this. Something feels wrong, she said. I know she tried to keep her tone neutral, but deep down I know she was scared, just as I was. Our hunger was forgotten, the thrill of the hunt, gone. We both knew we will get into big trouble once we tell them we were out, but this was not just something we encountered before, and the fact it was so close to the other parts doesn't help. Before we left, I pointed at the claw marks on the wall, which made her eyes widen slightly. She asked if it belongs to a werewolf. She never got an answer from me, as we were leaving. We knew werewolves and other creatures can be brutal because we know what they can do, but this didn't look like the work of a werewolf. They don't leave any survivors. And that's when it all went to shit. Both of us were moving away from the church. Bella took one last glance towards the church behind us while we were moving towards the woods. But at that moment, I swear I saw something behind the trees. A figure, tall, extremely tall and slender. But despite my vision, I couldn't see anything else. That's when my heart started to beat fast. So fast and loud, I almost thought Bella could hear it. I quickly turned at Bella and called her name, but when I turned back, it was gone. "What's wrong, Lucian?" she asked with a hint of worry. I still was staring at the woods, thinking that whatever I saw was real or not, because I never saw anything like that before. When she said my name again and put her hands on my shoulder, it snapped me back into reality. I wasn't sure to tell her that I saw something, but I decided against it, to not make the situation any more stressful. "Let's just go. This place is giving me the creeps," I answered. Whether she knew I lied to her or not will be another mystery for me, and I'm thinking that if I actually would have told her I saw the thing, would it actually change anything? But as we went on, my body started to protest slightly inside, as if telling me to not make any further move towards the woods, and I should probably listen. During the walk, we haven't spoken much. Both of us probably got something to say, but none of us did. It was like 45 minutes when I started to feel the now familiar thing again. The feeling of being watched. It's telling me something is wrong and that we shouldn't be here, and the habit of looking back and forth has taken over me once more. Bella noticed and put her hand gently on my shoulder with a soft smile. I looked at her hand, then back at her, and smirked as well. But just after when I started to calm myself, a twig snapped behind us, which made us both quickly turn around. We stood still, trying to hear any more movements, but despite our senses, we didn't hear nor see anything. Bella looked at me and whispered, "What was that?" I shook my head, saying, "I have no idea." There were a few creatures that were stealthy, and it wouldn't be surprising if they tried to stalk us. But we would hear its movements, despite how stealthy they would try to be. Bella was the first one to take out her sword, and I soon followed, as we made our way towards the sound we heard, not too far from us. I gripped the handle of my sword more tightly as we were getting closer. What we found was only a broken stick with a strange slight smell in the air that none of us could figure out what it was, and there, a pair of footprints. We stopped for a second before Bella took a closer look. They looked like human feet, but bigger, way bigger for a human, and too different to come from something like a werewolf. The scariest thing wasn't the fact we didn't know what made them, but the fact we noticed that behind the footprints led a whole trail of them, which means that whatever made them was following us the whole time without us even noticing it. I could have felt my pulse quicken and my heart beating faster, and I'm sure Bella felt the same. But then we realized something. The footprints stopped where we were standing and didn't continue any further. We didn't need to say anything as we immediately looked above us on the trees. And at that exact moment, a sound, as if something launched itself from a branch above us into the top of the trees, which made all the birds that were hidden there fly off to the sides. But that didn't stop us. Suddenly, we could hear something climbing through the top of the trees around us, so fast that the only way we could keep up was seeing the way the trees moved under its weight. Bella and I got closer to each other, our minds fully in panic mode, but our swords ready to stab anything that would come close. It looked like it was circling around us through the trees, but Bella seemed to figure out its timing and movement as she extended her left hand in front of her right hand holding a sword slightly behind her, and within a few seconds, she quickly hurled her sword, sending it spinning towards the trees. She hit something, and suddenly a screech was heard and the sound of getting stabbed before something fell onto the ground, something big with a loud thud. Bella was breathing heavily, and I immediately got in front of her holding my sword, and then something started to move. As it stood up, I've never seen anything so wrong. The thing was standing up slowly, its body twisted, making bone-cracking sounds as it was standing up, before eventually towering in front of us with all its terrifying glory, with Bella's sword still stabbed into its chest. It was tall, really tall, almost 2 times our size. Its limbs were so long and slender, with sharp long claws on each finger. It looked so slender that I could have sworn I saw its ribs peeking out, and its face. That face haunts me even now. That no matter how terrifying bears, lichens, wraiths can be, this will forever be stuck in my head. It had long, messy, almost wet black hair. Its eyes, it had none, like the eyeless man we saw earlier. It only had huge black holes, and its mouth, so wide and open, but with no teeth at all, just open the whole time, unmoving as it threatens to swallow us. It stood there still for a second, as all of us were staring at each other. My heartbeat was so fast that it could almost be heard more clearly than the hard breathing that thing was making. I looked slightly behind me at Bella, and she was staring at it with pure terror. And then a crack. Suddenly, that monstrosity twitched its head, making a cracking sound, then another and another. Both of us instinctively stepped back, not sure whether to fight it or run. It slowly lifted its slender hand, its fingers wrapping around the handle of the sword and quickly pulling it out, drops of black blood dropping on the ground. It stood there silently once more, holding the sword before dropping it to the ground. The feeder, Bella barely whispered, her voice trembling with fear. But just as she said that, it suddenly charged toward us, in a speed that shouldn't match its skeletal form. We barely reacted as we both dodged to the side. That thing was relentless as it turned at us again and charged once more. It lifted its long hand and swung at me, but I managed to connect the sharp part of my sword with its hand, cutting it away from me. The creature pulled its hand back, but it didn't roar in pain. It almost looked like it did nothing at all. It swung again, but I managed to duck under it, but I wasn't prepared for another strike. It managed to land a blow on me that made me hit a tree nearby. A breath kicked out from my lungs. It was strong, and my chest hurt like hell as I coughed some blood and struggled to breathe. I tried to stand up, but that thing was already on me, grabbing me by my neck and lifting me up to meet its gaze. I tried to break free, but my struggles were pointless, just as it looked like it will sink its claws into my face. Bella jumped onto its back from behind, ripping parts of its hairs were pieces of meat with it. The creature screamed. Its screams were something I'd never heard before, but it was probably painful enough to drop me on the ground. The creature stumbled backwards, trying to shake off Bella. She held herself onto it, and then she sank her fangs straight into the creature's neck. She saved my life that time, but it's also what led her into her demise, and I wish I could have done something. I lied there, trying to stand up while watching. Suddenly, she pulled out her fangs, only to see her eyes starting to bleed and her coughing up a black mass. She grabbed her neck as she was choking and fell into the ground. She was on all fours now, coughing up blood, and her veins suddenly going black. She barely managed to look at me before that thing kicked her into the tree, then grabbing her by the neck and with its claws cutting her stomach open, making parts of her organs fall out. She could barely scream, and so did I, as I shouted at that thing to let her go. But her torture didn't end here, as it put its finger into her jaw, opening it. It still makes me sick just thinking about it. A long, really long tongue came out of the creature's mouth, and before I could do anything, it shot its tongue deep into her mouth, dwelling through her body. Bella's eyes went wide. She started to squirm as it was feeding from her. And then, that terror hit me. I just couldn't handle it anymore. As a coward, I started to run while that thing was feasting on her. I didn't want to leave her there, but I was just too terrified. My legs were barely holding me, my chest and lungs were burned, but I couldn't stop. Bella was probably dead, and there was probably nothing I could have done to save her. Bella, I'm so sorry. It should have been me, not you. Tears run down my face as I continue to run for my life. I knew our castle is not too far away, but it also seemed like eternity. I tripped a lot, but every time I fell, I stood back up, glancing behind me if it's after me. And just as I started to see a forming silhouette of our castle not too far away, bone-cracking sounds were heard behind me, getting closer and closer, as if something was running towards me on all fours. I didn't know it could run this fast, but I didn't care. All I care about is to get myself away from that thing as fast as possible. I started to scream for help, hoping that others will hear me. Just barely when it was almost too close to me, I ran out from the woods, tripping on something. I quickly turned around, crawling away, expecting it to be behind me. But it just stood there, behind a tree, staring, unmoving, its mouth covered in blood, its head twitching once more. And then I fell unconscious. I don't know why. Perhaps my body couldn't handle it anymore. I woke up in bed, my wounds patched up, and with a glass of blood next to me, while my mother stood near the window. When she noticed I was awake, she smiled and quickly ran towards me, giving me a tight hug. My father was on the other side of the bed. His gaze revealed that he was disappointed, sad, but relieved that I managed to wake up. He didn't say anything, as he immediately left the room, and a few minutes later, an elder with my father entered the room. His name was Wellington. He was one of the oldest of us. What came after is that they were asking what happened that night. I told them everything. By their expressions, they looked like they were mad that we left the castle without permission. But that anger later turned into worry and slight fear. When I mentioned the name Feeder, my parents' eyes widened, and they looked at Wellington, who looked slightly at edge by the reveal. Yet, they didn't say anything. Afterwards, a party was sent to examine the abandoned church and find Bella. What I heard is that they found the church full of dead bodies, and by the looks of it, it looked like an ancient ritual. But they didn't tell me anything more. And Bella, they found her dead, but they never let me see her body. I tried to search books, letters, anything that would help me understand what the thing was, but I have found nothing about the feeder. And when I asked my parents, they said they didn't know. Honestly, I think they are lying to me. But why? One day, my old friend who belonged to another family, that his grandpa once told him of a legend of an ancient beast, which he didn't call Fader but Bobby. A creature so ancient that it's told to have been seen even by the most eldest of my kind. He said Bobby tends to appear out of nowhere and disappear again for even decades. Nobody ever knew where it came from. It just appears and disappears. But every time it was seen again, death always followed. But by the legend, it specifically hunted vampires. Even the most powerful ones were scared of it. It is said that when you see Bobby, it's a bad omen for vampires. But that's all he had to say, as almost nothing is known about it. I should probably end it here. I don't know what awaits us, but I have a bad feeling about all of this. What happened that night will always haunt me for the rest of my life, and I'm scared. It made me realize something, that despite us being vampires, spreading fear among humanity and other beings alike, there's still something out there, lurking in the shadows, that still haunts us. I have a bad feeling that it will return to finish what it started.